As some of you know, the creation of motion pictures was a combination of happy accidents, technological advancements, and Leland Stanford's racehorse bet. Click here if you don't know about Stanford's bet. It was then that moving pictures were created, and from then on, everyone started developing new cameras till they made movies that look like these. From then to now, everything from wars to summer blockbusters would shape the way cinema is made. So there were a couple of influential factors, and we can split them to micro and macro factors. The micro factors are those related to the individual filmmaker's personal lives, upbringings, beliefs, and interests. So those will be too specific and will vary for every filmmaker. So we're not going to talk about those. We're going to talk about macro factors like wars, politics, economics, art movements, and technological advancements. Because the impact of these macro factors has shaped worldwide cinematic movements that would heavily influence following movie eras and filmmakers. So in this series, we're going to go over some of the major cinematic eras and movements that heavily influenced films of later generations. In the 1890s, films were under a minute long, and until 1927, films had no sound. Unlike what many believe, the first public screening was not by the Lumiere brothers. It was Woodville Latham's screening of a boxing match in New York in May of 1895. But the Lumiere brothers got all the hype because of the publicity and the image quality of their films. The Lumiere films were snippets of reality, called actualités. They were of a train arriving at a train station, babies fighting over lunch, or workers leaving a factory. But by the early 20th century, D.W. Griffith began directing films that ran over 60 minutes long, used sequences, close-ups, cross-cutting, insert shots, and flashbacks. This was the birth of feature-length films. It was then that movies took on their true form as an art and a means to tell a story. Over the years, movies have attempted to reflect many things in our societies. Sometimes films would feature darker aspects like oppression, corruption, racism, bullying, or harassment. Not necessarily because the filmmakers endorsed these behaviors, though some of them actually did, but perhaps because they want to shed light on these matters to the public. And sometimes they would exhibit brighter facets of our society like peace, charity, integrity, and hope. As we can see, the film industry is affected by the surrounding society, because much of the time, films are reflecting these societies. And since films are heavily affected by societies, everything that affects societies, from wars to fashion trends, indirectly affect films. Such external factors molded the creation of some of the most prominent film eras and movements, like how Germany's political state influenced the creation of German Expressionism, or Russia's influenced the Soviet montage, or Japan's influenced post-war Japanese films. Technical innovations, economics, and laws of the industry also played a major role in developing film eras like the silent era, Hollywood's golden age, and independent cinema. These are just some of the film eras and movements that we'll be discussing in this series. But it's very important to remember that the influences of these movements are not always crystal clear, and that the micro factors that we mentioned are to be considered. So we'll try our best to help you at least have a clear understanding of the fundamentals of each of the eras and movements, and give you our personal insights as to how these cinematic eras have influenced films of today.